Meet Dave, or should I say meet many Daves. This video is a montage of Daves to show what someone goes through when they learn they must eat gluten-free. That is, someone who has been diagnosed with celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. The Daves featured in this video are regular dudes with an appetite for life. So let's begin. One day, Dave found himself staring at a doctor's report. He had always been a fan of all things delicious, pizza, beer, donuts, you name it. But now his world was about to change. His eyebrows did a dance of confusion. What on earth was gluten? Dave had a gluten sensitivity. This was news to him, and not a good or fun kind of news.
Gluten sounds like a bad guy from Power Rangers. Maybe it was time to call in the Megazord.
He scratched his head, picturing a doughy monster terrorizing a city. Was this gluten thing really that scary? Little did he know his life was about to become an epic battle against this invisible enemy. It was like a video game, but with real-life stakes. The doctor droned on about the digestive benefits of going gluten-free. Dave tried to listen, but his mind kept wandering. Dave was preoccupied with the thought of saying goodbye to his favorite foods. Pizza, beer, donuts, all gone. How was he supposed to survive without them? This called for an internal meltdown of epic proportions. His mind raced with the thought of a life without gluten.
Well, Doc, guess this means war. If gluten was the enemy, Dave was ready to fight.
Dave cursed dramatically as he stormed out of the doctor's office, but became determined to make things work. He was ready to face his new gluten-free destiny. No more gluten, no problem, or so he thought. Little did he know things were about to get hilariously messy. From accidental gluten consumption to confusing food labels, Dave's journey was just beginning. Navigating the grocery store aisles became an adventure in itself. Gluten-free bread, gluten-free pasta, gluten-free everything. But Dave was determined. He was going to master this gluten-free lifestyle, one step at a time. Back home, Dave decided to do some research on this gluten character. He typed it into his search bar. A barrage of images popped up: bread, pasta, cakes, all the things he loved dearly.
Okay, so gluten is in delicious things. That doesn't seem so bad.
He grabbed a donut for emphasis, but then he clicked on an article titled "The Hidden Sources of Gluten." The list was endless: soy sauce, salad dressings, even lipstick.
Lipstick? Seriously?
Dave exclaimed, checking his girlfriend's purse just to be sure. This gluten thing was sneakier than he thought. He sighed, realizing this wasn't going to be easy. Armed with a shopping list and a whole lot of apprehension, Dave ventured into the grocery store. He felt like he was entering a foreign land. Every aisle seemed to be a minefield of gluten.
Okay, gluten-free bread, gluten-free pasta, gluten-free soy sauce.
Dave muttered, pushing his cart with the grace of a lost puppy. He was starting to feel overwhelmed. Just then, he spotted a beacon of hope, the gluten-free aisle. He felt a surge of relief, like he had stumbled upon an oasis in the desert. It was a small victory in what promised to be a long and confusing journey. Later that week, Dave decided to brave a dinner party with friends. He'd warned them about his new dietary restrictions, but he knew better than to expect miracles.
Dude, you're not gonna eat this amazing pizza? It's got like extra gluten.
His friend Chad exclaimed, shoving a cheesy slice in Dave's face.
It's okay. I brought my own gluten-free breadsticks.
Dave said, pulling out a sad-looking bag from his backpack. They resembled twigs more than food.
Those look like something a beaver rejected, Chad quipped.
Meanwhile, Dave's friend Sarah bit into a juicy burger. Dave cringed. It was going to be a long night. Wherever Dave went, every dish was suspect, every ingredient a potential gluten bomb. Dave's anxiety spiked with every unfamiliar term and ambiguous description. Going out to eat had become an Olympic sport for Dave. He'd scan menus with the intensity of a detective searching for clues. Each word was scrutinized, each ingredient dissected. It was a mental workout that left him exhausted before the meal even began. This was Dave's restaurant war, navigating the menu minefield. This was not just a meal, it was a battle for survival in a world filled with hidden gluten traps.
Okay, so the salmon sounds safe, but what if they cook it in the same pan as the gluten-filled pasta? Dave whispered to himself, analyzing the menu like it held the secrets to the universe. On dates, Dave tried to act calm, but he secretly imagined cross-contamination scenarios, each more terrifying than the last, and Dave couldn't go anywhere without locating a bathroom first, just in case his body exploded.
He tried to flag down the waiter. His heart raced as he rehearsed his questions in his mind, hoping for a reassuring answer.
"Excuse me, is the salmon gluten-free?" he asked cautiously. His voice wavered slightly, betraying his nervousness.
The waiter, a guy with a vacant expression, just shrugged. It was clear he had no idea what gluten even was.
I don't know, man. It's fish, right?" he replied before disappearing into the kitchen. Dave's hope for a safe meal dwindled.
Dave sighed. This was going to be interesting. He braced himself for the next round of questions, knowing that his quest for a gluten-free meal was far from over. Dave decided to join a gluten-free support group. He had been struggling with his gluten intolerance for years and thought it was time to find a community that understood his daily challenges. He figured it would be a haven of understanding, a place where he could bond with fellow sufferers over the trials and tribulations of a gluten-free existence. He imagined heartfelt conversations, shared recipes, and maybe even some emotional support. Instead, he found himself in a room full of characters straight out of a sitcom. Each person seemed more eccentric than the last, and Dave quickly realized this was not going to be the serious support group he had envisioned.
There was Brett, the conspiracy theorist who believed gluten was a government plot. He wore a tinfoil hat and whispered about secret agencies adding gluten to food supplies to control the population.
And then there was Steve, who treated every meal like a scientific experiment. He meticulously measured every ingredient and documented his reactions in a detailed logbook. "I've developed a system," Steve said, brandishing a notebook filled with graphs and charts. He seemed to take pride in his complex data collection methods. "I call it the gluten-free matrix." Steve's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he explained his intricate system, which involved color-coded charts and a rating scale for gluten-free products.
Dave couldn't help but chuckle. This was too much. He had expected a serious discussion about gluten-free living, but instead, he found himself in the middle of a comedy show. Just when he thought it couldn't get any weirder, a woman named Gladys pulled out a ukulele and launched into a song about the joys of gluten-free baking. Her cheerful tune and enthusiastic performance left everyone in stitches. Dave shook his head, trying not to laugh. He had come looking for support, but found himself thoroughly entertained instead. This wasn't exactly the support he'd envisioned, but it was definitely entertaining. As the meeting wrapped up, Dave realized that sometimes laughter and a bit of absurdity were just as valuable as serious support. He left the group with a smile on his face, looking forward to the next meeting. One day, after weeks of diligently avoiding gluten, Dave slipped up. He was at a baseball game, caught up in the excitement, and he absent-mindedly grabbed a hot dog from a vendor. He took a huge bite.
"Oh man, that hit the spot," Dave mumbled, savoring the taste.
Then it hit him, the bun. He had eaten gluten. His stomach gurgled ominously. It was going to be a long ride home. As he raced for the bathroom, he couldn't help but laugh at the irony. After all his research and after being so careful, how could he forget about the bun? Dave learned that accidents happen, and when they do, they are no fun. For many of us, living gluten-free is no walk in the park. While things have gotten better over the years, it sometimes feels more like a wild goose chase through a grocery store, armed with a magnifying glass and a prayer. But back to Dave. He was learning to roll with the punches.
"Hey, at least I've got some good stories to tell," he thought to himself, recounting the hot dog incident to his friends.
His friends were in stitches, and Dave was in a better place. He realized that humor was the key to surviving any dietary restriction. It was all about finding the funny side of things, embracing the awkward moments, and never taking yourself too seriously. So Dave continued his gluten-free adventure armed with knowledge, a sense of humor, and a healthy dose of skepticism. He learned to read labels like a pro, navigate restaurant menus with the skill of a seasoned foodie, and even found some surprisingly delicious gluten-free alternatives.
Most importantly, he learned that life without gluten wasn't about deprivation. It was about discovering new favorites, challenging himself, and finding humor in the most unexpected places.
And hey, if he could make a few people laugh along the way, well, that was just icing on the gluten-free cake. How about you? Do you live a gluten-free lifestyle? Can you relate to anything you heard in Dave's story? Share your comments below. And now, the fun stuff. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual people, places, or events is purely coincidental, unless you think it sounds familiar, in which case it's a total accident. And I'm just as surprised as you are. The characters and events came straight from my overactive imagination and should not be taken seriously unless you want to, but that's on you. Remember, it's all made up, so sit back and relax. This is Lee, and I enjoyed making this video for you. Thank you for watching Dave's story. Let's wish for delicious gluten-free days ahead. Now it's time to share your gluten-free adventures in the comments. I'm so glad you're here. See you soon.